finger bobs. Yuffie lifts a finger, and a mouse is there.
Greetings, comrade. Even though I've been doxxed, I assure you that I'm still with you in the struggle. But I've noticed there's a few problems in the way we go about things that mean we might not being as effective as we could be. So I'd like to give you some tactical advice based on things I've had time to think about since I was doxxed, in the hopes that our struggle can be more effective. I've got some concerns about the masks. Now, I know why we do it. It's so the police can't identify us, and so we kind of blend into a block of people that's hard to individuate. But maybe a bit of a problem when it comes to sympathy and humanization. You'll understand, of course, the long tradition in theatre and in cinema and so on of turning certain baddies into faceless entities to remove any empathy or sympathy that anyone might have for them. It's a deliberate dehumanization tactic so that we don't feel sorry when enemy soldiers get gunned down, whether it's uniform or masks or helmets and so on. So I'm a little worried that the whole masking up thing might be alienating us from the public. Now, my degree is in underwater basket weaving and feminist dance therapy, so I'm not exactly qualified to talk on this. But I'm a little worried that some of the people that we are fighting, some of the people that we are attacking and deplatforming, may not be fascists. Now, we seem to have attacked and interrupted a few people who we've called fascists, who strenuously claim that they're not fascists. Say that they're liberals, libertarians, free speech advocates, mere conservatives rather than fascists, things like that. And I'm a little worried that we may be misidentifying our targets. I mean, we're anti-fascist action, not anti-everyone who doesn't 100% agree with us action, which might be a bit of a hard sell to the public. So if someone could just refresh my memory as to why some of these people are actually fascist, I'd greatly appreciate it. My father might be an international arms dealer and head of a rather important company that fulfills military contracts, but I assure you this doesn't compromise my political solidarity with you. But still, we got into an argument on his private island this Christmas, and I was, I'm afraid to say, quite stumped. You see, his point was that we don't seem to engage and argue with the points that our enemies are making. We just shout and break things. And yeah, I tried shouting and I tried breaking the gravy boat, which our servants then had to clean up, and it only seemed to piss off the servants and didn't seem to counter his argument in any way. It occurs to me that perhaps, given that we're on the right side of history and have everything correct and all the information and science and everything on our side, maybe we should use some of it. Maybe we should defeat these people's arguments rather than just shouting at them. Maybe. Anyway, following that argument, my father cut me off for 2 whole weeks from my stipend, so I'm sorry that many of you would have noticed a significant dip in your Patreons and crowdfunding campaigns, but I simply couldn't afford to support you any longer in that circumstance, and I was forced to take up a place in a squat alongside the working class and the underclass of Britain, who I can assure you are indeed the salt of the earth that we think they are, even though we so rarely encounter them. And again, we got into some political discussions, but it was really peculiar. They seem to have a lot more sympathy than one would have thought for some of these right-wing ideas. And when I asked them why, they said it's because we don't make any counter-arguments and we don't address their issues. And it turns out that they're not that bothered by gender-neutral bathrooms and things like that. They're more concerned about food and jobs and shelter and medical provision and things like that, rather than things that they considered to be rather esoteric and marginal arguments about representation and deplatforming fascists, many of whom, again, they claimed weren't even fascists on campuses and so on. And what goes on in universities was remarkably of no concern to them. Yeah, I tried to make our points to them. I used the full repertoire of our argumentary arsenal against them. I called them fascists, I called them bigoted, I punched them in the face, I shouted at them, and I set fire to their stuff. And yet nothing convinced them. They're immune to reason, it seems. So I'm torn two ways. Perhaps we should engage with people and use our superior arguments to change their minds, but then again, if punching someone in the face doesn't convince them that you're right, I don't know what will. Despite all the politicized arts and face punching and shouting and so on, I did get to meet some of my fellow squatters' families and so on, good, strong, salt of the earth, working class people, and again I tried to present my arguments to them. Didn't go so well, and it turns out that all this rioting and so on we do, smashing of windows and so on, the companies have this thing called insurance, where any damage gets paid for, and all we tend to do is to inconvenience ordinary working class people going about their daily lives, which pisses them off at us, it seems. So I'm a little disillusioned and worried that the things we're doing are actually counterproductive and are doing the movement harm. So perhaps we should look into doing things a little differently. Anyway, this is Jonathan Sinjun-Smythe, voice of the revolution, signing off. Katanga, my friends.
Old Fat Punks is part caper, part comedy, part nostalgia, and part commentary. It follows three aging punks as they build themselves up for one big, nihilistic last hurrah. You can buy Old Fat Punks at Amazon, Drive-Thru Fiction, or Lulu.com. Follow the links below or search on those sites.
You've been to school for a year or two, and you know you've seen it all. And Alice comes and you'll go far back east, you die, don't crawl. Play ethnic jazz, differentiate your snaz on your background stereo. Bragging that you know how the niggas feel cold and the sun's got so much soul.